It's time we give back. Sow a seed and show someone where love's at. Even if you don't give a dime, give your heart and share your time. Help somebody else in life. Give back. Let's give back.
Welcome to this segment of Ignite, Empower, Transform, where we showcase urban superheroes, and we actually have a superhero today. My name is Hosea James Givan II, and I'm delighted to have on set one of my former players. Man, family. What's up, Charles?
What's going on, Coach?
How you doing, man?
Good to be here. Great to be here.
Yeah. So Charles and I go way back. Many of the hats I've worn throughout my life has been a basketball coach, and we had my first AAU team back a few years back. Charles was actually a part of that first team.
That's right.
And his mom and I worked together as teachers.
That's right.
In Brownsville,
IS-271. That's right.
And she said she knew what I was doing and said, I want my son to play with you. I was living in Queens at the time. He's a Queens guy. And we connected we connected a couple of ways.
Sure.
But that was the original connection.
Right.
That was the original connection.
Absolutely. There were a number of different connections that we had that overlapped, and I was thinking about them today as I was getting ready for the show. I thought about there were so many different pathways that led us to each other, if you will, with Forest Hills Homeboys and what we did with that program and being a part of that program and sort of that initial class. And this was, if you remember, not when AAU was what it is now, but when it was first becoming that, right? And so arguably it was a little bit more pure, right, in terms of what was going on. And it was very much so, particularly in the program that you ran, you know, with Hollis Biddies and I Love Our Youth and Forest Hills Homeboys specifically, as we traveled, there was a clear emphasis on the need to give back, right? Like the need to stress your education and the need to stay involved and engaged. Like it wasn't just run and gun, run and shoot, whatever you wanted to do in terms of being on the basketball court playing basketball. And I think that was really, really special in terms of it being an experience. So we have a number of different ways that we're connected, and it's great to be here.
Hey, man, and I remember picking you up at your school, man, taking you, I think we were going to Boston, if I'm not
we was
mistaken.
going to Massachusetts Shootout. Yes, we were going to Boston Shootout.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. I mean, you know, what's interesting, when I look at so many of the things that I do in terms of community service, mentoring, a large portion of that came from what I saw, what I learned from different people, you, of course, being one of them. And the opportunity for me and a bunch of guys my age from Queens, New York, to go everywhere. We went to Philly, Villanova, Boston. Like, we went all over, right? And it was the greatest thing. And I think, in particular for me at the time, as a adolescent black male, what that did to be around other young men my age, and then to be led by men of high caliber, like you, Coach Carter, and everybody else who was involved, right? That was tremendous, because those are so formidable in terms of your years, and they make such a huge impression in terms of who you end up becoming. So what you're exposed to and what you're fed and what you're given during those years is critical. And I know that that was a significant piece of how we all became who we became.
You played in the first Nike Swoosh game, man.
I sure did.
You remember that?
Sure did. I sure absolutely remember that. And and we have a lot of conversation, but when I think about the sort of tree, if you will, people talk about like coaching trees and things like that. When I think about the tree of what that team did, just in terms of, right, you got folks who work for FBI agents, you got military officers, you have a civil rights attorney, you've got people who are out here doing really good things that are impacting society. You build leaders, right? Like, you built leaders as part of that program. And we had a great time doing it.
Yeah.
We had a great time. I mean, I think about so many of the different things that we learned, so many different things that we did, so many places we played. I mean, and we were playing against top talent, right? Like, we were playing against, we were in the mix. We were very much so in the mix. And that was a time, not to get too far off on basketball, but that was a time when, Queens was really popping.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of big names, and we were right there in the
You're
mix.
right about that.
And you know, to have that experience, I hold that near and dear.
That's
Near
what's up.
and dear.
That's what's up, man. And let me just say, man, I'm very proud of what you've become as far as your career. I've followed you in high school. You went to Hackley, one of the top prep schools in the New York City area. That was not easy getting into, and you handled it. You transitioned from that into Howard University.
Right.
Became a member of the Board of Trustees as an undergraduate.
Right.
Graduated. Became a member of the Board of Trustees as a law student.
Right.
Graduated as a lawyer, attorney. Still became, if I'm not mistaken, you remained on the Board of Trustees.
I did for a while.
And on and on and on, man. I see you on CNN. I see you on MSNBC. We are just blessed to have you, bro, because you high profile, man.
I don't know about high profile, but I am thankful.
Bruh, you have made us so proud, man.
Thank you. You know, I have been blessed to have opportunities and to understand that the gifts that I've been lent, you know, are not mine to use selfishly, but they've been lent to me so that I might be able to create opportunities for others. And, you know, it's really that simple. You know, when I was at the DA's office, I would get cases and I would look at the, you know, profile of whoever the defendant was, and I would say, well, who is this person that I'm supposed to be prosecuting, right? And I would look at their date of birth and their address. And oftentimes these were people who would be born within a week or two of me.
Wow.
Or, you know, lived within, you know, a couple of blocks away from where I lived, or spent time, or had family. And I would wonder to myself, well, what was the difference that found me on one side of the aisle versus finding them on the other? And each time, one thing that came back to me over and over again was the importance of male mentors and the importance of having strong male figures in your life, just, you know, as a means of sort of shepherding you along. And that was really the impetus for where I started in terms of community service and community activism around E.D.G.E New York City, because I knew that if I could have a fraction of the impact that people like you had, like clergy members had, you know, on me, or just like other folks who I knew were doing the right things had, if I had a fraction of the influence that they had on me, on other young men, I would give them a fighting chance. You know, I give them a shot.
So we're going to take a quick break, man, and then we're going to talk more about your E.D.G.E program, and then we'll get in the last segment. We're going to talk about your superhero program.
Fantastic.
All right.
All right.
All right. We'll be right back with Charles Coleman.
What if you could invest in the future? The future of kids, like a stock. Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow. My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
Lift every voice and sing.
We are here at 1520 Cedric Avenue, universally recognized as the birthplace of hip-hop. 1520 Cedric Avenue in the Bronx was where the legendary DJ Kool Herc invented blending the break part in records.
This is DJ Kool Herc, the father of hip-hop. This is going out to my...
Welcome back to this segment of Ignite, Empower, Transform. My name is Hosea James Givan II, and we are here with Charles Coleman. Charles was just about to get into discussing, you talked about the importance of mentoring, and we know how important that is.
Absolutely.
But I want you to kind of share with the audience what you've been doing with your E.D.G.E program, and we're going to actually take, if it's okay with you, I want to share with our audience a clip of you in action.
Sure.
With the program.
Okay. Right. So E.D.G.E is a program that is an acronym for Empower, Develop, Grow, and Educate. And we work with young men who are between the ages of 11 and 16, primarily in Brooklyn right now. We've been all over the city. This is our, in some way, shape, or form, We've existed in a number of different environments, but this is our 10th year in existence. So we've been, rocking and rolling really, really hard, really, really well. We meet twice a month on Saturdays, primarily during the school year, but fortunately my board has been very supportive of me in helping expand the program, and now we're getting into other things like college tours because now we have alums, right? So we started with sixth graders, but we've had so many cohorts and so many years that now we have alums that are at that age where they're starting to look at college. And it was originally conceived as a college readiness program. But what I was for starting with rising sophomores and intended to take them through the entire cycle of PSAT prep, taking the PSATs, looking at schools, going on college visits, filling out a FAFSA, all of the things that for a number of first-generation college students or even second-generation college students, you may not necessarily know how to do or do well, right? So the goal was to have it there, but what I was finding was that by the time we got to that age, if we had not started working with our young people earlier, if we had not started, getting in our scholars' ears at an earlier point, we would have lost a whole bunch of folks that might have been reachable, right? And so we work with young men who are, like we like to say, sort of on the edge, right? There's a lot of support for people at the top.
Yeah.
Our most gifted children tend to get a lot of support. There's tons of opportunities for them, right? By default or whatever, whether it's law enforcement, the criminal justice system, or other things, there's tons of attention to be given. Maybe it's not the best attention or the right attention, for some of our kids who may be our lowest performers, if you will, or some of the kids at the bottom of the spectrum, if you will. There are a lot of services and outlets for them.
Right.
But what happens to those kids in the middle?
Right.
What happens to those kids who are literally on the edge?
Right.
In terms of it could go either way.
Well, I love that, bro.
Yeah, and that's where the title came from. That's where the name came from, because the emphasis was an opportunity for young people who really just needed the right push, the right level of exposure. Funny enough, we were just talking about basketball in the last segment, and I remember as part of our program, I, along with a few members of the team, we were able to attend one of Spike Lee's basketball camps because Spike Lee had an invitational, right?
That's correct.
And his invitational was literally just for that. It wasn't for your blue chippers, right? And it wasn't for your scrubs. It was for kids who maybe they needed, just a little bit of exposure, and they could have gotten an opportunity to go other places and get exposure. And, we went there and we were able to thrive, right? And so in that same philosophy, that same philosophy and that same mentality, that was something that I felt like, let's try to create something that is going to take those kids that are sort of in the middle and need a positive push and give them that positive push. So we have a 3-part curriculum. We start out with the notion of creating your own identity and creating your own narrative, because for me, freedom and what freedom actually means, and this is sort of the civil rights attorney in me kicking in, freedom is the ability to create and actualize your own narrative.
Amen.
Right? And so,
just not to cut you up, but you realize the name of our company is Our Narrative Productions.
I did not know that.
Our Narrative Productions.
I love
For the same reason. For the same reason, we have to. I'm not surprised. Go ahead.
So that's the basis, right? For everything that we do is you need to be able to create your own narrative.
Yes, right.
And at 12, 13 years old, this is the first time that you have just enough freedom and independent thought to be able to sort of formulate an idea around who do you want to be when you show up in the world.
Okay.
And you give thoughts about that. And then from there we move into the second module, which is the power of choice. And that's critically important for many of our scholars, because now you're entering a phase in life where your choices have consequences, right? And they need to understand that mommy and daddy can't fix everything the way that they used to. And the way the world is going to judge the choices that you make is very different than it may have been when you were in 5th grade or 4th grade or lower, right? So now you have to understand that there's a lot of power in the choices that you make.
That's right.
You can either give yourself more choices by making good ones, or you can take away choices and options by making bad ones.
Right.
So you need to, we're not necessarily focused on what your outcomes are. We're more concerned with, do you have the proper mechanism for going through and thinking through the choices that you make?
Right.
Have you developed that thought process?
Right.
You know, in some situations there are clear right from wrongs, right?
Right.
But we do understand that, you know, there are a number of different ways to handle a number of different situations. And, you know, Mr. Coleman's not going to be there every time that you have to make a choice.
That's right.
And so, and it's not my job to be there. It's
Right.
my job, just like yours, to help make sure that you have the tools to sort of run it through the machine and make the right decision, the one that's best for you.
Right.
And you be aware of the fact that I made this decision. These are the potential consequences. I'm prepared to face these consequences if this happens. I didn't make this decision, and I didn't do it for those reasons, right? And then the final module that we do every year is understanding what type of leader you are. Fundamentally, E.D.G.E is a program that is intended to create and birth a generation of leaders in our community, for our community.
So needed.
And so
So needed.
it's important that
Warriors.
we provide them examples, credible examples of different types of men, right? Of different looks at manhood.
I believe children become what they see.
Absolutely.
So you expose
question.
them,
And there are things that you
it
will
becomes real, it's
and
attainable.
the more you know, the more you have from an exposure standpoint, the better off you are. Because
Absolutely.
now you can really sort of say, well, I've seen Mr. Coleman do this, you know, I like that, but I also observe this from over here. I'm not as outgoing necessarily as he is, but I see a model of quiet leadership that I like, and I can borrow some things. So now you get to sort of mix and match
Right.
in terms of really crafting and seeing yourself as a leader, not necessarily being wed to any one leadership model, right? But then also preparing yourself to actualize that vision and actualize that narrative that you've created for yourself, along with whatever principles that you've decided are important to you and that you want to focus on, you know, throughout your time in the program. So that's really how the program works. Like I said, we continue to sort of go back to the drawing board and tweak and tweak and tweak. And it's just been amazing to see some of our alums continue to grow and do what they're doing.
So in our next segment, we're going to talk about two things.
Okay.
We're going to give a clip of E.D.G.E,
Okay.
and we're going to talk about the Black Superhero Project.
Let's go.
Because that's dope, man. I've been following you on Facebook and
Thank you,
Instagram.
thank you,
You're going
thank
all
you.
over the world, brother.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
what's
sir.
up, man. We'll be right back.
Lift every voice and sing.
Bronze Flag History Makers! Kerry Washington gained her recognition starring in the ABC drama Scandal as Olivia Pope, a crisis management expert. She's an award-winning actress who doesn't shy away from her Bronx roots.
Let us march on.
Welcome back to this final segment of Ignite, Empower, Transform. My name is Hosea James Givan II, and we are here with, wow, one of my former players. He's like family to me. He's like family to me.
Indeed.
I love this man.
Indeed. Me too.
Charles, we've you so it's touching, man. I mean, to know that I had any part of this, you know, is really touching.
Huge part.
And to know that that you're taking it and you're not just, you know, you're talking the talk and walking the walk. You know, we sometimes don't pass on what we've been given.
Sure.
And that's part of why we exist, to kind of give people a nudge, to let them know that they
Right.
have an obligation. If you've been blessed, the expectation is, if you're working with me or been involved with me,
Right.
it doesn't have to be on your level, but in some capacity, they should be giving back. They should be trying to help others, because that's how the world changes, right?
Absolutely.
So what we want to do is, if it's okay, at this time, we'd like to try to take about 90 seconds and take a look at what you're doing
Okay.
with your E.D.G.E program.
Sure.
So let's take a look at that now.
First time we meet somebody, when we walk into a room, and we meet, you know, one of your mentors or anything like that, we look someone dead in the eye, we say, firm handshake, all right? Good morning. All right. Good morning. All right. Good morning. All right.
Hey, brother, that again, evidence is in whatever, you know, what you're doing is making a difference and having an impact. And
appreciate
I'm not
that.
surprised, man. I'm not surprised.
I appreciate that.
I know your father, I know your mother,
Yes.
and I know your mom don't play.
No, sir. You already know that. You already know
Your
that.
mom don't
so.
play. And I want to shout out to Violet Coleman.
Appreciate
too.
that. Appreciate
I know
that.
you were a little under the weather, but I see you bounce back.
Absolutely.
So keep doing your thing. Proud of you too. Proud of you too. Okay, bro. So let's talk. You got a national program, man.
I do.
And you know, we go back and forth. You're an Omega, I'm an Alpha, and we go back and forth and joke around through the years. But at some point, we got to step away sometimes from the organization and create our own vision of what God is a calling, I believe, right? So if sometimes we're able to make it that way, but sometimes we have to create our own. And I'm real impressed. You've not only done one thing, but you're doing another thing that is going through the country. And talk about the Black Superhero Project.
So the Black Superhero Project is an initiative that involves me and a nonprofit organization that I started, CFC 40, going to 10 different cities across America.
What does CFC 40 stand for?
I don't want to make you feel old, but
Well,
I have a birthday coming up this year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
man.
I said,
That's
I said, I don't know what I'm going to do for my birthday, but whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to earn it.
Right.
And so, I was actually in my shower one morning, and this was in New York. This was in November or October. One of those early mornings in New York City when it just starts getting cold, and your body hasn't adjusted to the cold yet.
Right.
And I was just in the shower, and it was feeling so good. And I stopped and I said to myself, "Yo, there's people in Flint that don't have clean water."
Wow. Really?
Yeah, it just came to me because I was just in the moment, you know,
Wow.
right? And I said, there are people in Flint who don't have clean water,
That's scary.
and they can't do this.
Right.
And so I said, all right, people know what happened in Flint, right? But after the news cameras go off, they're not paying attention to what's happening in these communities, and people are still suffering.
Right.
And I'm particularly sensitive about that,
Right.
particularly when you start talking about issues involving communities of color, because I do, commentary around issues in our community on national networks. I know what it's like when the media is there for a moment and you think that a story is going to get highlighted and get some traction. And then when the cycle shifts and no one's covering and the cameras have gone home, those people still have to pick up the pieces and figure things out.
Right.
So I figured, well, what would happen if I was able to use the platform that I have to bring back some attention to those communities and to those causes? So every city has been very strategically identified around specific stories and demographics that are in need of support. And we're partnering with local organizations on the ground that are doing work in those cities already. And the idea is, simply put, the slogan for CFC 40 is do your part.
Right.
I don't need everybody to go travel across the country and go to 10 cities. You don't need to do that.
Right.
There are opportunities for you to lead exactly where you are. And if you just decide to do that,
this is my guy. This is my guy.
That's it.
This is my guy.
And
that's exactly it, man.
we all have gifts that create opportunities that we can leverage on behalf of others in our community. You don't have to build it, right? Like a lot of times you don't have to build it.
Right.
A lot of times it already exists.
Right.
And if you do have to build it, it doesn't have to be grandiose. It can be small. You play the piano. You have an instrument gift. What would it do to open your home twice a month for an hour and teach some kids about music or teach them how to read music or what have you, right? You have people, young people in your neighborhoods that you see every single day. You don't know their names. All you know, that's the kid with his pants hanging down. You don't know his story. Nothing, right? What would happen if you just decided to leave where you are, just on your block? Just on your block. And so the goal with the Black Superhero Project is to help people understand, at the end of the day, we're the ones who will have to move the needle. Right? Like, I don't care You know, electoral politics is a funny game.
Yeah, it is.
It's a really funny game, right?
Yeah, it is.
We're entering into a presidential election cycle. We all know what comes with that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I knew when I started this project, Donald Trump wasn't coming to Brooklyn.
Right.
And if he wasn't coming to where I live in Brooklyn. Right. If she had won, we don't necessarily know that Hillary Clinton was coming to Brooklyn. You know, I mean, beyond where her campaign headquarters was.
Right.
Right. Like, and that's not a matter of partisan politics or allegiance to any party. It's a matter of understanding that at the end of the day, we've got to be the ones to move the needle. Right. And so if we stop waiting for other people to sort of get in office and fix things or get appointed and do things, we will have an opportunity to take back control and power within our own communities and our own space.
My name is Charles Coleman Jr. I'm a civil rights attorney, a legal analyst on TV, and I run a mentoring program for Black and Latino boys in Brooklyn, New York. Some people call me the Black superhero. I don't wear a cape or fly around in the sky, but there's a lot more to being a superhero than simply parlor tricks. CFC 40 is a nonprofit organization that I started because I wanted to make a difference. Throughout history in the United States, people of color, Black people, we've had. We've not been able to rely on anyone else to consistently help us to troubleshoot our problems. And because of that, we've always had the resources within our community to do what needs to be done in order to engineer solutions to the problems that affect us most. Right between all of us, our network of people, our network of organizers, our network of organizations have always been the thing that we've had.
And on that note, brother, you wrapped it up, man.
My man.
You really, Charles, man, I can't emphasize, bro. I'm really proud of you,
Thank
what
you,
you're
Coach.
doing.
You will always be coach to me. I mean,
Right.
I'm a little bit older now.
Right.
You will never be Hosea to me. You haven't been Mr. Givan to me in years. You will always be coach.
All right.
You will always be coach. So thank you, coach,
All right,
for being here. I appreciate it. It's like being home.
all right, brother. Keep up the good work, man.
My man.
All right, brother.
All right.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of Ignite, Empower, Transform. And remember, if it's in your heart, do your part. Today's help equals tomorrow's hope. I love our youth. Power to the people.
I see all your smiles and all the tears showing down on your faces. But I know all the while it's gonna be okay, yes it is. Just open up your eyes. Open up your eyes. The sun is soon to shine. Aim your arrow high and keep reaching for the sky. It's time we give back.